Hi, brothers and sisters. This is Bobby Quitain, and welcome to Pathways of Hope. Today, we want to reflect on the ninth chapter of the Gospel of John. Ito po yung Gospel where Jesus healed the blind man. And this man was blind from birth. And after that, after he healed him, the Pharisees questioned him as to how he got healed. And because he was blind, he didn't know it was Jesus who healed him. And later on in the gospel, we see him recognizing Jesus as the one who healed him and eventually worshiping him and being thankful to him. What can we learn from this gospel passage today? Well, if you notice in this passage, there were actually more than one blind person. In fact, there were a lot of blind people in this passage. Well, for one, the man who was healed by Jesus was physically blind, and yet, if we read through the story and if we read through the lines, you'd realize that the Pharisees, in fact, were more blind than him. While they can see with their eyes, he can see with his heart. I remember many years ago, I was talking to a friend who was blind, and I asked him, "How old are you?" And he said he was around 30, and he said, "Is it okay for you? Okay lang ba sa'yo na bulag ka pa hanggang 70 years old ka? 40 more years to go na bulag ka?" And his answer really brought tears to my eyes. You know what he said? He said, "Okay lang yun, Bob. Okay lang yun, sir." Actually, sabi niya sa akin. Kasi, pag namatay na ako, makakakita na ako ng panghabang buhay. You know, when I heard that, I realized that my friend was physically blind, and yet he can see far better than so many people out there who can see with their eyes. Pretty much like the Pharisees in the story. They see with their eyes, and yet they couldn't see with their hearts. This man saw Jesus more than they saw him. He saw him for who he is, the Messiah. They saw him merely as a carpenter from Nazareth. In so many ways, our failure to see God in many things would prevent us from experiencing Him in our lives. So, in this crisis, I'd like to suggest that you try to see things with your heart more than your physical eyes. Why? Because God is there. God is there in that person struggling to live in the hospital. God is there in the person of that health worker who risks his or her life every day going to the hospital and caring for the sick. God is in that government official who works so hard to help the people through this crisis. God is in that rich businessman who chooses to give his profits, his money, his wealth as a donation to the poor people during this crisis. God is in that poor person begging for your help. God is there if only we open the eyes of our hearts. How do we see God with our hearts? 3 things. 1, be faithful. Be obedient. Follow the Lord during this time. The blind man, when Jesus told him to wash his eyes, went and obeyed, and that's why he got healed. If we want to heal the world, we must obey the Lord during these times. We must not choose to insist on our own ways, but rather obey Him every step of the way. Second, we must be steadfast. The blind man in the story was coerced, criticized, pressured to say that Jesus was not the one who healed him and that he was not the Messiah. But the man remained steadfast. He chose not to listen to these voices of fear and these voices of pressure, and instead he chose to remain resolute in his conviction that Jesus was the one who healed him and Jesus was a man of God. And lastly, we have to be grateful. When the man recognized Jesus, when the blind man recognized Jesus, his instant response was worship. He worshipped him, he thanked him. God also expects the same from us, that we be grateful to him every step of the way. No matter what happens, be grateful to the Lord, because gratitude is an act of faith. What we're saying is, Lord, things might not be going the way we planned them, and yet we know that at the end of it all, you will deliver us. You will carry us through. And so even now, we will be grateful. We will be grateful, for we know that you will let us see. May you have a blessed Sunday. God bless you.